Welcome to Raiders on the Record, the podcast featuring Hastings High School athletics. I'm Athletic Director Trent Hansen. My colleague Tim Hanneberg and I work together to bring you the stories of Raiders sports. We are thrilled to share conversations with the athletes, coaches, and alumni that represent Raider Nation. Check back weekly and be sure to share this podcast with your friends in the Raiders Network.
Dana Strain is a 1988 graduate of Ellsworth High School. After graduating from UW-Eau Claire, he stayed on staff and coached for football for 5 years before moving on to UND as a grad assistant coach for 1.5 years. After both of these coaching opportunities, Dana coached and taught for 8 years at Ashwaubenon High School in the Green Bay area before coming to Hastings, where he has been a math teacher and head football coach for 15 years. During this time, he has also coached middle school baseball. Coach Strain brings a ton of passion and energy to the football field and his players. Throughout the interview, he talks about focusing on the process and not the outcome, while measuring his players for growth and progress. His advice to parents and coaches and athletes truly hits home, especially to anyone who is on the fence or thinking about getting into coaching. Here we are with Coach Dana Strain. Coach, to get a little background information on you, let's start off with where you grew up, your hometown, your family, the year you graduated high school, if you're comfortable saying that, and then anything else about your brothers, sisters, moms, dad, anything like that growing up, and just give us that snapshot of what your life looked like growing up.
Well, I graduated from Ellsworth High School in 1988, cheese curd capital of the world. My family moved into Hager City, which is a small little town about 35 minutes from Hastings. It's on the Wisconsin side of the river. We moved here for my dad's work. So our extended family was all stayed behind in North Dakota. So we're very close with our cousins and grandparents, but we didn't get the chance to see them a lot. So I've got 5 older brothers and a mom and a dad when I was younger, and that was everything to me. So it was just us, we didn't have the extended family nearby. And we grew up in a neat little area in Hager City. It is out in the country, but it was a neighborhood of houses. So it was almost like you were in the city, but you were out in the country, and it was a perfect place for our family. 5 older brothers were all big into sports. And that's, I'm sure, what got me into it. And so just grew up in that neighborhood that was about 15 minutes from Ellsworth. So you were separated from a lot of the kids that you'd end up going to high school with. And it was just perfect. It was a small little neighborhood, but it had a bunch of kids our age. My older brothers, it's me, I'm the youngest. And then the oldest is 10 years older than me. So in that 10-year span, there were kids in our neighborhood that were all in that age bracket. And so we made our own fun a lot, like a lot of kids, do, and certainly did back then. And that was a big memory for me. And that's, I think, I'm pretty close to my family, and I think that might have something to do with it. We made our own fun, and with 5 older brothers, they become your best friends. And so I was always spending more time with them than I would necessarily with other people. And that's just the way my life has been. So I've been very blessed in that regard. Dad died when I was 20 in college, but my lovely mother is still with us and active at 86. And so I'm very blessed with that. Like I said, I graduated from Ellsworth High School. It was a great little community and a great school for me too. You'll appreciate the fact that we had good wrestling there and good sports programs, and a neat little school district that was one of the biggest in Wisconsin land-wise, but not that big of a school either, so small, and you got to know everybody. So really very blessed with my upbringing and where I grew up and everything from the time I was young until I went off to college. I couldn't have scripted it any better.
Nice. So we focus around a lot about sports in this podcast. I'm sure growing up in the area you did with 5 older brothers, there was a lot of maybe boxing matches going on, maybe a lot of wrestling going on too, a lot of sandlot sports going on as well. But looking back, what do you think one of your earliest or one of your best sports memories was growing up?
That's pretty easy. I just remember when I was a kid that, and the vivid memory I have of it is just playing out in our yard with all of the older brothers playing what we called fumble. which is basically throw a football out in the yard, pick it up and run till you got tackled and the ball was ripped out of your hands. And then if neighboring kids came over, that would evolve into a game. And so just those backyard games that you mentioned, that you didn't have coaches necessarily there all the time, and you kind of made your own rules or officiated the game yourself. And but that's a memory that I've gotten with 5 older brothers. A lot of times it was me playing up and playing against some older kids, but I can remember, I vividly remember snow coming down and running around out in the yard and just playing any kind of organized game that revolved around a football. And then as the season changed, it was, we played wiffle ball, and in the winter we put ice cream. The lids from ice cream pails were our goalie masks, and we put that on, and we played a little street hockey in the driveway. So whatever season it was, in our neighborhood, we were playing something, and that's what I remember the most. And if you ask me to narrow it down to one specific time or sport, it was definitely revolving around the football out in the yard and playing with my older brothers.
So growing up in Hager City and close to Ellsworth, I'm gonna guess you're one of the many people that have been on here that your first job was detasseling corn, or it could have been baling hay. Just a wild guess here, but maybe I'm wrong here. So what do you think? What was your first job growing up?
It was detasseling corn, and it was not a fun job. And,
Yeah.
But I did that. There was a Jake Seed Corn Company in Red Wing, Minnesota at the time that I worked for, and then there was a Brown Seed Company that was actually over in Bay City, of the fields on the other side of Hager City there. So I did that about 3 or 4 years and was happy to hang that up when I was able to and move on till I got into, when I was in high school. I remember I worked at an apple orchard where I'd get to go in. I'd play my Friday night football games, and then on Saturday morning I'd wake up and I'd go in and work at this apple orchard where I actually was kind of like a baker. I just cooked the pre-made apple crisp and things of that nature. But I sure enjoyed that a heck of a lot more than corn detasseling.
Yeah, it seems like most people start off with corn detasseling, and then they go into rock picking, and then they just kind of work their way up in the farm system. And then baling hay is kind of one of the last ones. But no, that was awesome. Good guess on my part. So, Coach, we start off with your youth here. We'll get to kind of into more of your history as well. But talk to us about your current coaching role at Hastings High School, your occupation, what do you do for a living, and then all the sports you coach as well.
Well, I'm a teacher. I'm a math teacher at the high school. I've been here for 15 years at Hastings, and so that's my job, and that's my number one priority. And then an extension of that is the coaching, where I'm the head football coach at Hastings. It's also my 15th year. Just finished up my 15th year, in fact, of doing that, and I think it's about my 29th year of coaching football altogether. So that's what I do. I did coach at one point middle school baseball here at Hastings, and I really enjoyed that. Got away from it here about 4 or 5 years ago, but that was always a fun experience for me as well. A very different role than being a head coach, and a very different sport. And so I enjoyed that a great deal. But my love and passion is coaching football and teaching in any capacity. And so teaching here at the high school math has been a real treat, and I've enjoyed my time here in the district.
For sure. I know Trent Hansen always asks us coaches this question, but why do you coach specifically football as well? You talked about growing up playing fumble football with your brothers growing up, and you played football in college as well. But why do you coach? Why do you coach football, and why did you end up coaching here at Hastings High School?
Well, I think like a lot of us that do this, at some point, whether you realized it was happening at the time or not, but sports had such a big impact on my life, and really by extension, coaches had a immeasurable impact on my life. And when I look back, they're some of the most important people outside of family. And again, sometimes you don't always realize it at the time, but I sure got a great deal of respect for all of those who have worked with me. And I loved every one of them. I've never been one of those guys that didn't like this coach and really like that coach. I've just always appreciated every coach that I've had for whatever their style was. I just learned something from every one of them and really enjoyed it. So I think that's why I got into it. Obviously I've got the older brothers as well that were big into sports. And so it was just such a part of my life. I got to be honest with you, I couldn't imagine doing anything other than what I'm doing. But I just sure enjoy it as well, and the opportunity to work with the kids. And I think the longer you do it, the more you appreciate that it is for the kids, and it's far less about you. And so that's a big part of the reason why I continue to do it. But as you get older too, boy, it sure brings a lot of joy to your life, and keeps you young and keeps you active. And I don't know, I've always wondered what other people do that aren't coaching, where you find that competitive, fun environment that I couldn't live without, and I couldn't imagine where else you could get it. So, that's some of the reasons why I continue to do it. And I just love working with kids, whether it's in the classroom or on the field, and those aha moments, or when you see a young man or a young lady get better at what they're doing. That's a pretty special deal, and to have any hand in that is pretty cool to experience that in any capacity.
For sure. To fast forward, or to rewind, I should say, a little bit too. You talked about this is your 29th year overall coaching. Walk us through your coaching journey. Where'd you start from? Where was that at? And then kind of, once again, how you ended up right here in Hastings.
So when I got done playing college football at Eau Claire, I had schooling still to do to finish up. And so I ended up coaching on that same staff that I played for. So I played 5 years at UW-Eau Claire, and then I ended up staying there and coaching for 5 years, and sort of drug that out as long as I could, because I really enjoyed my role there as an assistant coach. And so I did some long-term subbing and some part-time teaching in the Eau Claire school district, just so I could stay there. And I sort of, slowed everything else down in terms of my teaching career, just so I could stay there and coach. So I spent 5 years there at Eau Claire, and then went from there to the University of North Dakota, where I spent a year and a half out there, one full season as a grad assistant coach for the football team out there, and worked on some master's program. And then from there, decided to stop chasing the collegiate route and settled down into my first teaching job, full-time teaching job, and full-time coaching job was out in Green Bay, Wisconsin, at a high school called Ashwaubenon, which was just a wonderful experience. Really a hard to beat experience that will no doubt be one of my favorite times in my lifetime. I was an assistant coach there on a great staff, and we had a lot of success, but it was a great community and a great fit for me. So I spent 8 years out there in Green Bay. And then, like a lot of people, you evolve, and at some point you kind of go through the natural progression of you're an assistant, and not that I was ever desperate to be a head coach, but at some point, it's an option and an opportunity that you start to explore. And so I did that. And I interviewed for about, I don't know if interviewed's the right word, but I kind of looked around at head coaching opportunities for about 3 years, I suppose, and really wanted to make sure that it was the right one for me. And for me, it was coming back here because this is so close to where I grew up. And so, it's funny, about the time I started pursuing head coaching opportunities, not desperate to jump at the first one, but about the time I started to pursue them, there wasn't a job available here at Hastings. And so you interview at different places, and for whatever reason, you don't get offered, or you get offered and you turn it down for whatever reason. And life always kind of has a reason for how it happens. And so then I got an interview and an opportunity here at Hastings. And I can vividly remember coming back from Green Bay to interview, and then having the interview with Tom Johnson and Mike Johnson at the time, and Cork was on the interview committee. And I can remember then, when I was done with that, I drove down 35 along the river to where I grew up. And that was a road that I was very used to traveling when I was younger. And so I vividly remember driving down there saying, if this gets offered, I'm taking this job, because it just felt like I was coming back home. And that's really why I pursued the jobs that I did. They were all ones that were going to be within an hour and a half or 2 hours of home. And my goal was that whatever I did, that when I was done with my coaching season, I was going to be able to travel back to see Ma and go out for a Friday night dinner with her in the off season. And I had to be that close So I found this opportunity here at Hastings, and it's been a perfect fit for me.
Nice. So thinking about your coaching career, you've been coaching for a lot of years here. We talk about over 20 years, 29 years here, overall 15 years here in Hastings. If you could go back to one of your first years coaching, you get in that time machine, the doc shows up in the DeLorean and you jump in and you're going back in time here. What's something that you know now as a more mature coach that you kind of wish you knew back then when you started? Something that you kind of matured over the years and got better at, or maybe a certain lesson, a certain tactic, something that you really can implement now in your coaching career that you wish you would have done back then.
I don't know if it's wish I would have done back then as much as it's more so just an understanding that you really just got to focus on the process, and winning and losing is certainly something that does matter. It's not the only thing that matters, but certainly that's a part of what drives us and pushes us, and that's part of the goal. And but there are so many factors that go into winning or losing, and it can be such a fickle line. And a lot of times there's things that are out of your control, and a call here or a call there or a funny bounce. And so you really just got to focus on the process and stay true to the process, and not try to get too cute, not try to outsmart yourself or outthink yourself or do more harm to your own team because you're trying to, be that mad magician that's going to come up with some reason you're going to outfox somebody else. The longer you do it, the more you realize that most of us don't do it a whole lot different than anybody else. And we're all pretty close and doing things very similar. And certainly in a sport like football, we're all copying from one another anyways. There's no secret. You turn on the film, you know what everybody's doing. They know what you're doing, and everybody's running about the same 5 plays. And so you used to think that you had a much, much bigger hand in making that difference. And certainly you do, but I think it's in different ways than you thought. And it's just focus on the process, stay true to the process. Certainly it's hard to do that if you're not having a high level of success too. So that's a challenge when, because if you're around it long enough, you're going to have some great moments and you're going to have some tough times in coaching and in sports really. And when I say tough times, I just mean, falling short, not that they're, difficult to endure, but you're not going to win them all. And when you're not winning, that's when it's even harder, but you really just got to stay true to the process and make sure you do what you believe and just keep working and not let anything get you too far off the track. And I think that's the thing that it really kind of simplifies it. And you didn't always know that, or I didn't always know that when I was younger. And that keeps things pretty simple and kind of keeps your feet on the ground.
For sure. So you've been in the coaching game for almost 30 years here, almost 3 decades. What do you think the most rewarding experience has been, or one of the best experiences have been coaching, especially football or any kind of sport that you've coached along the way too?
I just think, anytime that you're working with somebody and you can see somebody or something improve, whether it's your team or a young coach that you're working with and helping them to grow, or if it's a player that you're working with and a one-on-one, trying to help them develop as a player and get better. And those are the things that they're hard to explain how fun they are to be a part of when you're helping somebody get better, you're helping a team get better, and you see that person or that coach or that team have success. And you kind of know the work that went into it and the fact that it isn't easy. And so I just think that's the most special thing. And it's true in the classroom too. If you're working with somebody and trying to help them better understand something, and whether you see that aha moment or you see their hard work pay off for them, those are pretty cool moments that I think that's the biggest reason why I do what I do.
Another thing that Trent always asks us is to define success, and how do we define success? So turn that again, Anya, how do you define success? And once again, this could be coaching, this could be in the classroom, and whatever kind of way you want to define it as well. So how do you define success?
Yeah, I just think I go back to what I just talked about a little bit, is just that growth. I think whether you're an educator or a coach or whatever, any type of development that you're into, I think you have an idea of kind of where you're at. And so I think you can generally have an understanding of how much growth has taken place. And I think that's the biggest thing that helps me define success, is just seeing that growth. And, so like I've been a coach and been a part of staffs where people have said, hey, your team got better, or your team just kept working hard and stuck to it and just got better through the year. Or you see a player that gets better from the time they walk through the door. You see that student that gets better, or they develop better habits for studying, or better habits for learning and growing. So I just think that growth, which is kind of hard to quantify, of course, so it isn't like you put a number on it, but you can see it, and that's the most important thing, I think, and that's really the part that I enjoy, is being a part of that growth and the challenge of trying to find ways to attain that growth. It isn't always easy. It isn't always linear. And what works in one situation doesn't necessarily work in the other. So that's part of the challenge too, is just find ways to unlock that growth, or that success for a team, or whatever the case may be.
For sure. So you went to Ellsworth High School. You played football at UW-Eau Claire as well. Tell me about a coach that really had a big impact in your life. Once again, it could be from high school, it could be from college. Someone that really taught you something that you really applied your life, something that really stuck with you, that you apply in your coaching career as well. So who do you think that coach would be for you growing up?
Well, it's a great question, and I would never narrow it down to just one, because like I said, all these coaches, I've just enjoyed them so much. This season, in fact, my old high school coach for football emailed me and said that he'd been following us, and that's a pretty cool deal when something like that happens. But the one, as I thought about this, that I'll talk about, and you'll appreciate being a wrestling coach, would be Jack Radabaugh. Was our head wrestling coach at Ellsworth, and he was an outstanding coach. He had a lot of success as a coach. He had a lot of team success. He had a lot of kids that went on and had success in wrestling. And so obviously an excellent coach, but you never really knew why necessarily until you had a chance to work with him. And just some of the things for me that he had a hand in is, number one, he believed in me more than I did at the time, which in wrestling was really important, because, I was probably a much better football player at a younger age than I was a wrestler. For me in wrestling, that was a sport where I really had to grow and get better and develop, and had some really good kids at my weight that I had to overcome just to get to be a varsity wrestler, much less try to have success against any other team. But he believed in me. And then when I got to be a varsity wrestler, I'll never forget that as I got into that tournament phase of my senior year, I'm asking him at some point, hey, when I get beat out, will I get to go with the guys to state? And he's like, you're going to state. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand the question. And he's like, no, you don't understand. You're going to state. And I didn't believe it at the time. And so that belief was huge. And then the other thing that was so cool about him was, it was all about you. It wasn't about him. So for all the success that he had, it would have been easy for him to walk around like he was the main attraction. But when you were going out on the mat with him, you were it. It was all about you. So I thought that was so cool. And all the way into the state tournament, where I was, fortunate to be able to compete at that level, to see him in that moment was unreal, because it was all about me. And it was like I was the greatest thing going at that time. So that was pretty cool. And then the other thing that he did such a great job of is he really did a great job of teaching you. So there were times where he wasn't a real vocal guy, but he'd come up and he'd give you one little tidbit. And if you utilized what he told you, and you'd go on, you'd have success with it. It was unreal to me. And it was like, wow, I had so much struggle with that kid. And then he gives me this little thing that I can use. And all of a sudden it's just really paying off. So he just had so many ways that he impacted me as a young athlete, as a young wrestler. So those will stick with me forever.
So what was that moment like then? You're going into your senior year, you're in your section tournament or your region tournament, however, Wisconsin kind of handles their system there, and you're just kind of part of the team and you're going through the motions maybe a little bit. And he says that to you, that that you're making it to the state tournament. What did that feel like, when he gives you that kind of confidence? Did that just kind of boost you up that much more? And did you see yourself in a different light, or that he was in your corner 100%, and that, if he's in your corner, then you're going to be winning every match that you can. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was very powerful. So as you explain that back to me, that, that kind of hits home that it did, it changed me at that time. Now, I'm not going to say it just radically changed me, because I was always one that was, it still took me a while to believe it. But it certainly made a difference for me when he communicated with me at that time. It made a difference in that. Then I started to believe that. I was like, oh gosh, if he thinks that, maybe there is a chance here. It probably didn't change the way I went about things. I just showed up and went to work every day. And that's kind of the way, he ran the program. And that's always what sort of resonated with me. So it's not like I wasn't, trying or working hard. And so who knows, maybe I would have had some of that same success anyways. But it certainly was very powerful, particularly coming from a guy like him who had had all of the success that he had had. And so you knew if he was saying it to you, it was probably true, whether you had a hard time believing it or not. And so certainly you reflect back on that, and you understand the power of coaching and the power of positivity and the power of boosting somebody up and letting them know that they can do something and that they believe in you. That's a very powerful, powerful thing. And I know this, but the longer you're in sports, it's amazing what that power of mindset is and what that power of belief is. And so anytime that somebody has that in you, it's very impactful and very powerful.
For sure. So you've been coaching for, like we've already talked about it, for almost 30 years here. You've worked with many amazing coaches over that 30-year span. Who do you think this, once again, very hard and tricky question here, but who do you think is someone that really stood out as a assistant coach, really had a really big positive impact on you, maybe taught you something that you really put in your coaching tool belt that you kind of really stuck with you for many years there? Once again, you could pick a couple different people too along the path as well. So who do you think that influential assistant coach has been over your career?
You talking my coaching career or my playing career?
Coaching. Yep. So the 29-year coaching career.
Well, still, it would be probably the same guy, actually. So when I played in college, and then I stayed and kept coaching in college, I worked for a guy that was just an absolute grinder. His name is John Stager, and he was our defensive coordinator at the time. And then I had a chance to work on his staff and be a colleague of his, and to just learn from him was unbelievable how smart he was. And he was just he was a genius, but he was a very low-key genius. He didn't care if anybody else knew who he was. He didn't care if anybody else knew how smart he was. None of that was of interest to him. All he wanted to do was get better and work hard and find an edge. And he was a heck of a competitor, and so smart. I mean, his level of intelligence in football was through the roof. And so I learned so much from him in so many different ways. And he's still in the coaching business to this day. And like an assistant head coach up at Duluth on their football staff. And he's just a brilliant mind that I always respected, because for me, it was always more about, the intelligence of the game or learning, the nuances and understanding schemes and things of that nature. So for me, the mental part of the game was always huge, no matter what sport I was in. And so to get a chance to work with somebody like him, who that's all it was just he was so smart, and yet he would outwork anybody. And that, the other thing that I probably learned from him is he just was a grinder. And I'll be honest, not always fun to work with, because I mean, he never took a minute off. And if you worked on his staff and worked with him, you weren't taking a minute off either. But pretty powerful influence on my life he was, and will forever be probably my number one mentor in coaching, is John Stager.
Nice. So let's focus in on the 15 years you've been here in Hastings. I'm going to guess I know the answer to this one, but I really like this question because it's just different for every coach, different for every sport as well. So it's a pretty interesting question. So which opponent do you think really brings out the best in you? Something that you really always look forward to playing in football. You see the game on the calendar, you circle it and read about 2 or 3 times and put some stars next to it. So who do you think that opponent is for you in football?
I'll be honest. I don't know that I've got one. I've never been, frankly, I've never been a big, whatever the heck you call those games, those
Rivalry or
rivalry type
yep.
games. It's never been that big of a thing to me. I think when you were playing, it was special to beat somebody, but typically when it was special to beat somebody, it was because they were good. So the thing for me is, anytime that you're in one of those competitive games, that's what I think brings out the best in me. I think that's what brings out the best of sport, is when you're in those competitive environments and whether it's the last minute of a basketball game or the last 30 seconds of a wrestling match or a track meet where you've got that last relay that's going around. I think any of those ultra competitive battles are so powerful. And that's, one of the reasons that I coach is to help kids have, just experience that thrill. And I'm sure that's something that must have hooked me when I was younger, is just being in those moments. And God, the excitement that you get when you're in those, and everybody, like in football, you've got such a big roster, and it's pretty neat for us. I watch our film, and you can see our entire sideline hopping up and down when a moment like that is happening late in the game. And there's a lot of kids on the sideline that don't get a lot of playing time in that given game. And yet when there's a tight game, you see everybody involved, and you can kind of see, even at times, the camera shake a little bit. And I'm sure you've seen that too, just from wrestling. And when that camera's kind of wobbling and you think, oh, why is this camera not still? And then it dawns on you, it's like, God, this is a big moment, and everybody's into this thing. And that's just such a powerful part about sports. And so for me, it isn't any one opponent, to be honest with you. It is much more so just anytime you've got an opportunity to try to find an edge, to give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter or the third period or whatever the case may be, and to get in those white knuckle moments where everybody's feeling that pressure, that's just special. So it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't have to be Park or St. Thomas or anything like that. It's just anytime you can get in one of those games, those moments are tough to beat.
For sure. Once again, focusing on the last 15 years here in Hastings, what do you think one of your favorite moments or experiences has been as a high school coach here in Hastings?
Well, there's a lot of them. Again, anytime you go into some of those games where they're tight, there's so many special memories that you get throughout the years. And then the longer you do it, the more you get a chance to talk to kids when you run into them and see them after their careers are done. And pretty soon they all kind of run together a little bit. As a coach, to be honest with you, you can't remember what year it was. And then when you get talking to, you run into 3-4 guys that were on a certain team of yours, and you almost got to ask some questions of, okay, remind me again, who did you guys play and what were those games like? But it doesn't take long once they start mentioning whether it's this Roseville game that we played where we had a huge comeback in the fourth quarter, and the memories that we had from that game. And so there's just so many different moments throughout that were awfully cool, and some big games, or we beat Cretan and the crowd rushes the field. That's a heck of a deal. And even this year we had a heck of a run, and so this is going to go down as one of my most memorable years without a doubt. And so I couldn't narrow it down to any one moment. It's just, again, it's just competition is so special to me. When you get into those sweaty palm moments, they're just hard to replace. And I can't imagine living my life without having that. So to be so blessed at the age of 51 to still be able to get that. And I got 5 older brothers. They don't get that. Mm-hmm. They come and watch me coach, and they want to be a part of that. And I love that they want to be a part of that. But I'm looking at them at times going, I don't know where you get it. I know where I get it. I get it from being with these kids and finding ourselves at any point in time in those special moments in competition where it's tight and everybody's nervous. And that to me is so special. So there's been so many of those moments through the 15 years here Too, as a coach, it doesn't always happen. It doesn't have to be the 8-2 years or the undefeated seasons or the state championships, man. Every season's got those moments. And I remember one of our leanest years is where we won a game late in the year, and it was our first win. And it might have been my first year coaching here, and we got our first win of the season late in the season on a last-second field goal. And I can still remember to this day, they had a picture of the ball going through the uprights in the paper at the time. And I think that still hangs downtown. And so every season's got some of those moments. And so those are the reasons why you do it. And those are the things that keep you coming back.
For sure. A couple questions here then to wrap up the interview here, Coach. You've been coaching for 29 years, 15 here in Hastings. If you could give parents or coaches 2 pieces of advice from your experiences and your perspective, what would they be and why?
Well, just enjoy it. I mean, like from a parent's perspective, really enjoy it. And certainly, wins and losses are, again, that's part of what drives you ultimately at the varsity level. And that's an important thing. But always make sure you take the time to slow things down and really enjoy. So like, I look back at our season this year, I hope our parents found times to connect and have that sort of communal atmosphere where you it isn't just about whether you won the game or lost the game, but you're meeting other parents and you're sitting in the same spots in the stands, and you got all those little routines and rituals that are part of any season in any sport. I just hope that parents in particular really can slow things down and look around and soak it all in, because I know, for them and for our athletes, they go fast. And I think same thing for coaches, is just enjoy the ride. There's a lot of stresses that we all know as coaches. And a lot of times it's probably our own doing, where we put a lot of that on ourselves and take things more personally than we need to, and take things a little bit, harder than we need to, and a little bit harder on ourselves than we maybe sometimes need to. But really make sure, again, that you've got the ability to step back and really enjoy it. I'd hate to think, whenever my time comes where I'm done coaching, I'd hate to think that I missed all the fun and it was all just the grind and the pressure and the stress. There's so many things that are fun, and I'm guilty of that. That's my personality. I'm wired that way a little bit. So I always really enjoy when I've got those kids that are a little bit different than me, and they can kind of shake me loose of that every once in a while and make sure that I stay grounded and really appreciate the little things, because there's so many fun things. And I know you appreciate this as a coach, but boy, it's much more than the 8 or 9 games that you got. It's all of those moments, and you just find yourself laughing and enjoying a lighthearted moment within the season, whatever the case may be. So really, whether it's with parents or coaches, is just really make sure that you soak it all in and enjoy it. Because even a coaching career, 29 years it's been for me, and really you can look back and it feels like it's gone just like that. So enjoy every moment.
You might have already answered. You threw in a little bit here too. So same kind of question now for student athletes. You had a lot of kids come through your math classroom. A lot of kids come in on the football field, baseball diamond as well. So pieces of advice for student athletes as well.
I think for them, it's just make sure that you do everything that you can to prepare and to be your best, and just make sure that when it's all said and done that you gave everything that you had. And boy, if you can say that, you'll have no regrets. So I think that's a big one. And that's a part of, I think, what sports teaches us is, that you do need to prepare, and it forces you to work hard. And again, I think that's why winning is important, in the sense that is the goal that pushes us to do things that we might not otherwise do, or to push past limits that we might have thought were limits that really aren't. And it's just places we haven't gone past before. So, just really, again, I mean, for those student athletes, it's going to go so fast. And when it's done, it's done. And particularly like in our sport, football, you just don't get an opportunity to play tackle football the rest of your life. I can remember to this day what grass smells like when you go down and hit the ground. And that's a part of what's so neat about it. And yet that window where you get a chance to do it is so small. So really just make sure that you do everything that you can to prepare, and to be the best that you can be, and then so that you have no regrets when it's done, and then you'll look back on it with fondest of memories, even though it isn't always fun. I mean, I love the fact that literally we're just this season, it happened again. It happens every year. We got a group of kids, they're walking out of the weight room and we're late in our season, and they're like, hey, don't ever have to do Raiders Express again. And you know what? I get it. It's not always fun to get up and go into that weight room. And so that's true for even the greatest of champions. And, but it's worth it, and putting that work in, and knowing that you continue to battle through some of those ups and downs that every season has, and those moments that you didn't feel like going in. Those are the times that you really grow as a person. So just, do everything that you can to prepare, and have no regrets.
Awesome. Coach Train, that's all I got for you today. Before we go, the mic is yours. Anything else you want to throw in there? Anything I forgot to ask you? Anything you want to talk about? Like I said, the mic is yours and you can go for it.
No, I'll tell you, I don't know what the audience is for this, but I'll just say this. If coaching is any opportunity that anybody has to pursue it at some point in time, boy, go for it, because coaching is, like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, I couldn't imagine my life without doing what I do. There would be such a vacuum and a hole that I wouldn't begin to know how to fill it. And I think this is true of a lot of people that coach, but it consumes you to a certain extent. And so maybe you don't have some of the hobbies, but I can't imagine any one hobby that would fill the void, because coaching has been such a blessing for me, and competition in sports in general has been such a big thing. So if you get an opportunity, if you're a young student athlete and you got an opportunity to play another sport, play another sport. I'm sure you won't regret it. And if you got a chance to somehow coach down the road, whether that's youth coach, whatever the case may be, and if you ever get that opportunity, go for it, because it is a real blessing and a real treat, and brings a great deal of joy to my life. And I think anybody that's coached, yeah, there's stressors that go with it like anything else, but you talk to anybody that's coached, and it's tough to beat. So that would be my thing. My parting words would be, if you got an opportunity to compete, whether that's as a player or a coach, to go for it.
I couldn't agree more. Coach Train, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Timo.